Yo, what's up, guys? This is your boy Kurt, coach of the Emerald and Emerus. And as you can tell by the thumbnail, we are back in UNPL. PC problems fixed. I can actually upload this season, and hopefully by the end of the season, I'll have my new setup, which means that I won't have any issues while editing. But also by the thumbnail, you can tell our first pick of the draft was Gouging Fire. I was third overall pick. So this wasn't a bad option at all. One of the better options for the new toys that I could have had fun with. This thing has been so much fun to just play around with in like OU and just stuff like that. Like this mon is such a good mon. Base 115 attack is nothing to scoff at. Hitting 361 if you go adamant. And in a lot of matchups, I feel like I can, because later on in the draft, I do support this. But that was a big thing that I was planning around once I picked this Pokemon, was that I needed to support this Pokemon. This was going to be one of my major win cons for the season. And relatively good bulk with 105 HP and 121 defense, as well as 93 in SPDF. Like this thing it just takes a hit. It can set up, it has Dragon Dance, it has Scale Shot, it has obviously Photosynthesis with Booster Energy. It can realistically run a few special moves if it really needs to for the matchup. It doesn't have the worst special attack in the world. It's obviously not optimal, but it also gets recovery as well in Morning Sun, which is massive. It has Roar for the phasing. It also has its signature move being Protect, like Baneful Bunker, but for a burn, which is absolutely huge if Pokemon want to make contact with this Pokemon. Just a lot of good util on this Pokemon that I think has a lot of potential to just do a lot of damage to teams. Definitely one of my better picks. And then second off, we have my boy Raikou returning from the older gens. He's back, and I love this Pokemon. Raikou is so good. It's got such a good speed and special attack stat with the SPDF. Calm mindsets are so much fun. It's a good choice scarf user, good pivot mon. It gets Scold back, which is huge for this Pokemon. Being able to burn those pesky ground types and actually being able to hit them without things like Extrasensory or Aura Sphere or the like. It also gets access to new things like Trailblaze, which is really cool. Being able to speed boost with Raikou is going to be so much fun for giving me the option to run like Life Orb, but also be able to outspeed those threats that I was originally going to struggle with and would have needed Scarf, or have to waste a move slot on Agility and give them a basically free switch if they go into a ground type or the like. So that's really nice. This is just a really nice like pivot mon, and just a good like potential Scarf option to pair alongside the Gouging Fire, because I was really wanting to just support this Gouging Fire, get it in as much as possible. So Raikou really helps me get that. It also is a good screens user, so there's potential in like a screens Raikou if I feel like I need a defensive set that week. You just check something. So Raikou, a lot of really cool utility. Obviously extreme speed because of its event. So something that I can use for random priority if I really need it. And then to pair up with these two, I decided I needed something fat. I needed a bulky water, and we picked up the boy Slowking. Slowking is just, you know what he does. He sits, he just takes hits, he sets up on you if he really wants to run like Calm Mind or Nasty Plot, Chilly Receptions out into your ice types, gives you momentum. Just the regen is insane. This thing just does so much different things. It's able to run like random Earthquake or Thunder Punch or just something to hit a Pokemon that it originally couldn't. So, you know, being able to also self-recover with Slack Off on setup sets, huge. It gets moves like Curse if I really want to go like I need Phys-Def boosting as well, if I'm going for like a stored power set or something like that. So a lot of potential again in this Pokemon. It gives me a nice fat resist for a lot of the things that Gouging Fire and Raikou don't want to deal with. This is just sort of like a glue for those top two Pokemon, so absolutely huge pickup for me. And I'm really glad that I went with the Slowking, because there is also potential for like, if I don't want to bring the Gouging Fire Raikou, there is potential for me bringing a Trick Room set one week. depending on the matchup, if they have things like Dragapult, Chen Pao, I could maybe bring Trick Room to try and reverse that around and actually beat those Pokemon, because those are very, very scary Pokemon, and being able to just reverse the roles could be a massive, massive game changer. And I just really think that Slowking sort of glues this top part of the team together. So, and then moving on, I realized I need a ground type, I need removal, I need a steel type to complete my Dragon Fairy Steel Core. And so we picked up Iron Treads. I've used this boy a few times. I love this thing, and it got some access to some new moves. So Supercell Slam, gonna be very, very fun on this Pokemon. Just a few things like that. A few cool new little toys that this thing picked up with the second DLC. Moves like Hard Press are going to be very, very interesting, especially if it's early on in the match. This thing could put in a lot of work to help me clean up late game, just being able to click like Hard Press and the like. So a lot of really, really cool things that I can see me doing with this. This also gives me Spin, it gives me Rocks. So again, more support to help the top 2 Pokemon, really. Like that's the main thing at the moment with this draft, is that I'm just wanting to actually like support those top 2 Pokemon and really, really make them shine. So picking up resists, immunities, the likes. So now I have a rock resist as well as a fairy resist. And next up is the problem of I'm very, very ground weak now. I'm super, super ground weak, so I need to patch that like as soon as possible. And so we're going to pick up, obviously, Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is such a good ground immunity. This gives me a second remover in case I can't fit Iron Treads onto the matchup. This thing really didn't lose anything at all coming into this gen. We're still getting Roost, Defog, the likes, and still being able to Toxic as well. Like, that was one of the big things I think that Mandy kept. Toxic really, really helps this Pokemon out because it can stop a lot of those sort of fat Pokemon that wanted to sit in front of this if it did lose Toxic. But now you can't really sit in front of Mandibuzz anymore because it still has knockoff and it can Toxic you, which just sort of forces things around and could make for a very interesting time playing against Mandibuzz on top of this team. Because if you let things get toxic, it's going to allow Iron Treads, Gadget Fire, Raikou to absolutely put a dent into this team. Especially for your like bulky ground types to try and deal with these Pokemon. Because being able to toxic those things is just, it's going to be a godsend. So I think Mandy was a huge pickup, being able to remove for me and just being a really, really bulky dark type so I don't lose to set up psychic types too. It's just another massive, massive buff picking up this Pokemon. And next, I needed a bit more speed, and I decided to draft my first Terra Captain. So Terra in this league is 12 points and below. You're allowed 3 Terra types, maximum of 3 Terra Captains as well, adding up to 18 points total. So Sceptile was a really, really nice one for me. I feel like I can really, really use this, especially with the Dragon and Flying typing for like acrobatic sets with Terra Flying, but also like just Terra Dragon on top of moves like Dragon Pulse are going to be absolutely huge. I just put in a dent into massively into teams, as well as like just being able to click Terra Grass, Leaf Storm with a Jetpack, and just things like that could be absolutely huge for this team. I might change up the Terra types midway through the season if I feel like Flying isn't working for me, but I feel like Dragon and Flying are probably 2 of the better types for Sceptile. They're not defensive Terra types. I'm still very weak to Ice if I do that, but I'm not too worried about Ice types when I have the Iron Treads, the Slowking, and the Gouging Fire. So I feel like I could be a little bit gung-ho on the Ice weakness here, but this just helps me a lot. Gives a lot of damage to a lot of moves, especially with Sceptile getting access to Scale Shot now. Being able to get Terra Dragon Scale Shots on top of loaded dice is just going to be, it's going to be massive. As well as like Terra Grass Bullet Seeds with Unburdened Swords Dance sets and the like. So a lot of options to use Sceptile. I don't need to run Unburden. I can run Overgrow to try and get some low HP damage back out. The speed tier being 120. My speed tiers are sort of all over the place at the moment, but being able to get that 120 is sort of stopping a lot of the off the top Pokemon, being able to run Adamant. Well, obviously things like Chen Pao and Dragapult still can run things like Adamant and Modest, but that's just something I'm going to have to deal with. There's not much I can do. There's not a whole lot of 130 plus Pokemon to pick from that actually meld into this team. So I thought, try and sort of balance that out. I would pick up Webs. So now I have Gouging Fire, plus I have the Webs with Araquanid, and this gives me an absolute powerhouse of a bulky water type. So I've got 2 bulky waters, but they both do very, very different things. This one is a Web setter, being able to also self-recover in Leech Life. A few cool tools in things like Iron Defense to buff that relatively low defense stat compared to its special defense stat. But just the natural special bulk of this paired with the Slowking means that electric types are actually going to have a bit of a problem breaking through this team, even if they do click an electric move on my Slowking and my Araquanid. So that's really, really nice, and its ability Water Bubble, meaning that this can be a Will-O-Wisp switch-in if I go against bulky fire types in the types of like Arcanine, regular Arcanine, not Hisuian, because I would never switch this thing in on Hisuian Arcanine, but that idea behind it, the power for liquidation being doubled or something like that. Yeah, it doubled. I didn't remember off the top of my head, but giving like base 170 liquidations or something like that is absolutely ridiculous. On top of then getting stab boosted, this thing is just an absolute menace. There's not a whole lot of switch-ins to this thing, even if it's uninvested. Like 70 attack is not much, but that water bubble really, really does a lot to help this thing out. So I feel like Araquanid giving me webs, giving me a water immunity as well as a burn switch-in if I need it, is really, really nice, especially going against, say, Palafin teams or the like. So that could be a lot of fun. And then I was realizing that I still haven't picked my fairy. So I'm going to pick up a low tier fairy here in another Terra Captain of Dashbun. I love Dashbun. This is my little dog. Giving me a complete fire immunity to pair alongside the Sceptile Iron Treads and the 2 bulky water types, meaning that I'm really not scared of any offensive fire types, like, at all. So this is just helping me a lot, being able to just deal with these. So fire types, not a problem. Really, really good for me. The Terra Steel, obviously, because then I only have 2 weaknesses in ground and fighting, and one of them I just naturally beat because I'm a base fairy type, so my play roughs are still going to hurt if you try and bring in your fighting type to deal with the Dashbun. So this just helps me long term to sort of keep Dashbun around. Terra Steel Dashbun is such a good set. I love Dashbun, and the Terra fighting for the body presses if I do manage to get the defense boost. Absolutely amazing. A great Wish support mon, as well as like Yawn shenanigans. So this is just really, really nice. I love Dashbun. I think it gives a lot to this team. It gives me a lot of longevity into the team, which is something that I definitely feel like this team needs. Being able to give more longevity to things like the Gouging Fire and the Raikou that are really the main staples of what I drafted around is absolutely huge. And then I decided I wanted to pick up a normal type. I needed a ghost switch in because my only ghost switch in was Mandibuzz at this time. So I picked up the boy Regigigas. I love this man. He's such a cool guy. A lot of potential here in Terra Regigigas with the Terra Fairy to actually hit fighting types that want to try and use me to set up. I can now use them instead to just Terra Blast them in the mouth. Terra Normal double edges and stuff like that are going to hurt as well. This thing has a monumental attack stat. Even if it's halved down to 80 at the start, that is still a huge attack stat for 5 turns. 80 is not anything to scoff at. That still does a decent amount of damage. And being able to boost back up to base 100 speed and 160 attack after you get off the slow start, meaning that this thing can run stuff like Substitute and try and like stall out those turns if it's in the right situation. So this gives me a lot of bulk as well to play around with. 110 in both defenses and 110 in HP. this gives me a lot to sort of use as switch-ins and be able to check other things that like my dash button or something couldn't realistically switch into. This just gives me another answer, pair alongside a lot of the bulk that I have. So just picking up a lot of bulk here, and that's really all I'm after, is trying to have support bulk and things that can deal with threats and checks that I need to deal with, to then have my cleaners come in and finish off the game for me. So up next, I needed an actual fighting type, so I picked up the boy Hariyama. Again, another burn switch in, a poison absorber because of guts, thick fat for fire switch in. We got sheer force to have a little bit of shenanigans with that. This thing getting access to headlong rush is the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. But a lot of cool toys with Hariyama. I haven't used this guy in so long. I missed using this guy. He is so cool. And I feel like this could be a lot of fun. Especially belly drum sets could be cool. Getting access to bulk up now as well. Well, I always had bulk up, but you know what I mean. Being able to bulk up and just having support that I think this Pokemon really needs. And breakers and defensive pivots that want to deal with the psychic types and the fairy types that really want to deal with this thing, and the flying types realistically. So Hariyama really supported well on this team, and something that can actually sort of clean up late game if I get a belly drum off in the right situation. There's sort of nothing that they can do at the end of the game. I just start bullet punching and their team is weak. So that's a really good pickup for me, I think. And I'm hoping that Hariyama can sort of pull his weight, and he seems like a really cool guy, and I hope that this doesn't suck as a fighting type. But I mean, we've got to have our meme pick to finish off, and I decided to pick up Young Gloom because this is unironically one of the better Pecha Runt checks for other bulky poison types, because this gives me an actual immunity that isn't Iron Treads. Because at the moment, Iron Treads being my only switch into any poison type means that they can just have Earthquake on their set or any fire or ground move, and I just kind of lose my Iron Treads. Obviously, they can still do the same against Gloom, but I feel like Gloom's grass and poison typing gives me a lot of sort of being able to soak up T-Spikes as well is huge. This gives me a second toxic user, try and whittle down teams. And I'm really excited to use Gloom. This could be a lot of fun. Being able to click Moonblast on things as a Gloom is kind of funny. And he's just a cool guy to finish off the draft. So with that, that is the end of the draft analysis. I don't really have much else to say. We do take on Trexo in week 1, and I am so excited to play against Trexo. So hopefully you guys hang around and come support me as well as the rest of the UNPL coaches. All their links will be down in the description below, as well as the link to the Discord server. You can come hang out, support, grab the roles of your favorite coach, and I will see you guys in week 1.